Hello, hello. Ooh, and let me turn this off so you all can hear me. Hello, 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 and welcome to my life. I finally got my voice back. Like it has been an uphill battle trying to get my voice back, and it finally has come back 100%. It came back at the beginning, the end of last week. And then I went outside and it became raspy again. So I have not been making videos or content because I sounded like a dude. It was like real deep and froggish. So my voice is finally back. Yay. And hopefully I can catch up on some of the things that I am supposed to be doing. And it has just been an uphill battle. I don't know what the weather is like where you all are at, but we had an onslaught of ragweed in the Houston area, and it has not been kind. Everybody I know is coughing, sneezing, or they have lost their voices. So I finally got mine back, and I'm so excited to be here back on Sundays. My coffee and curriculum live stream is back on. I should be up and running for next Saturday, and just glad to be back on track. Because it's always like I'm supposed to be doing something, but I'm not doing it. That's that feeling. So but anyway, for those of you all who are new here, my name is Michelle, aka the Ignited Teacher. And what I do on my channel is I help math teachers like you, if you're a math teacher, to close learning gaps by using effective and research based and evidence based, meaning that these are strategies that I have tried in my classroom, or I know someone who has tried them and then I tried it, and I have been teaching for 25 years. This is year 25. I can't believe it. I remember when I was 25 years old and I was the youngest one on the grade level. But I'm not even the oldest yet. So, not there yet. But that's what I do on this channel. Um, if you are new, you're watching this on the replay, don't forget to like or subscribe to my YouTube channel and share it with those who need it. When I started this whole YouTube and business thing, we were at a different place in education. Education is not the same in the same space it was 5 or 6 years ago when I began, and teachers need support. Um, Teachers are retiring. There is not any support for our newer teachers, and even teachers that are coming into the field from other professions. It's just not. The principals are leaving, superintendents are leaving, everybody's leaving. So sometimes this is the only support that teachers may get. So share it with them if they need it. So if you're watching this, drop a comment in the comment section. Tell me where you are um, watching from, who you support, and what questions you have. Because this problem solving thing tonight that I'm talking about is out of control. It really is. And I'm going to talk and tell my story about how I got involved in this whole um, connecting reading to math. When I was at NCTM last year in New Orleans, it was my first year presenting this reading and math connection. I had been doing it for years in my classroom, so it wasn't anything that wasn't new for me, but it's the first time that I have actually been teaching it. I've been teaching it actively to teachers because I've seen the onslaught and the decline in literacy rates, and it's affecting the math. As a matter of fact, it's affecting everything. It's affecting everything. So let me go ahead and get started. If you are looking for resources, you can check out my blog at fieldgreatminds.com. So I also have some lesson plans on there for hard to teach concepts, but mostly my blog is about math instruction. Oh, let me move that. Math instruction, project-based learning, classroom management, response to intervention, and technology integration. So generally, those are the topics that I cover because regardless of who your students are, um, as my website says, it's inclusive mathematics instruction. And inclusive meaning we include all of the children that are in our classroom, not just the ones that are deemed math worthy. So we teach our kids, even my students, my special ed students, and yes, it's hot in here. These lights, they make me sweat. So if you see me fanning, it's okay. It's the lighting in here. Um, all of our students, they deserve a quality, high quality math instruction. Um, from their teachers. So if you're, one of those teachers who are like, well, my students can't do this, and some, don't get me wrong, the instruction should be scaffolded, but if you give the children a chance, they will rise to the occasion. And those tests that you worry about at the end of the school year, they will knock them out of the park. How do I know? Because I'm that teacher. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this thing we call um, problem solving strategies. Now, one of the issues that I see, and before I even go there, one of the problems that I see in education is that when we move to teachers that you know, specialized in certain things elementary. No longer teachers were trained in reading. I'm one of the, I guess you could say dinosaurs, the last samurai, any of those things. I have taught reading. I've taught reading. I've been a self-contained teacher. But those teachers rarely exist unless you have taught K1 and 2 because of the certification areas, and that stuff has changed. So I'm not going to jump on that soapbox because that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But that led to part of the issue in education. So that's one of the things I wanted to bring up is I used to teach reading. I started out in first grade, second, taught second, and skipped over third and jumped right into fifth because, yeah, that was not my jam. So if you are looking for blog posts about reading comprehension, you can check out my website. But there are literacy strategies that you can use in your classroom. And if you're not using them, especially with your emerging bilingual, you're going to lose them. So here's one simple thing I'm going to start out with is a double bubble map. I am a thinking routine teacher. I like thinking routines. Now, I would not use double bubble maps for K through 2. I definitely would introduce it to 3 through 5 and above because double bubble maps, they make the focus on what's alike and what's different. If you notice right here, I was comparing place value. So it's really, really simple. It doesn't have to be anything real in depth. What this does is teaches the children the literacy strategy on how to compare and contrast. Believe it or not, folks, your students don't know how to compare and contrast. They don't. Now, if you think they do, ask them to write down the steps. Writing is going to get them, and ask them to identify the steps when they compare and contrast. They don't know how. And this is one of the things that reinforces those literacy strategies as they make the math tests and our standardized tests harder. They're doing cross curriculum discipline. And it's just not math and science. They are using skills like compare and contrast from reading. It's a skill that the students have to do with the mathematics. This is one easy, simple literacy strategy that you can use. Now, on my website, there is a blog post called, I'm trying to move this down, called Reading Comprehension Strategies in the Classroom. Now, it goes through talking about my experience with Read Draw Write. And I was introduced to Read Draw Write when I was in Louisiana and I was being trained in Eureka Math. But what I found out is that Read Draw Write is a great strategy on its own, problem solving strategy, but I had to adapt it and create something for my students who were struggling readers. That's your emerging bilinguals, those your dyslexic children, those are your special ed students that struggle with reading. But sometimes the students have really, really good oral comprehension. And what this Read Draw Write does, the adaptive version that I created, it helps those populations of students. So in this blog post, that's what I talk about. Sorry, I'm snorting in the camera. That's what I talk about. I talk about T-charts, predicting with evidence, the things that we're going to talk about tonight on this live stream. So I am excited about that. You see my little joy emoji. I like to have that pop up every now and again. So if you have any questions, whether you're on a replay or you're watching live, drop them in the comment section. And at the end, I'm going to show you where you can purchase the Read Draw Write. It is it's not even a program. You get all the templates, you get my anchor charts, you get everything with it, but I'll show you that at the end of the live stream. So the first thing you want to start with, especially if you are first or second grade, you can do this orally, but for third grade, the students should be here. This is where they should be. Now, your instruction with a T-chart should be very explicit. As you can see on the left side, that is the read part. When I introduced Read Draw Write, my adaptive version, I hit this very hard and very explicit. The first question is, what do we know? Second question, what do we want to know? Third, is there any information that's confusing? Now, this is a problem for young, you know what? I'm not even say young learners. I'm going to say for learners in general. They do not think about, well, I don't know this word. I've had to have many conversations with students about, if you don't know something, ask. Don't just sit there and not get what you need. Ask for what you want and what you need, because I cannot clear up anything if I don't know what you know, or you don't know, or if you find something that's confusing. So it needs to be very explicit, and we call that clarifying. Like if there's some things that you don't know, I know when my students were working groups, they had a clarifier in the group, and I'm going to talk about that when I talk about reciprocal teaching in the math classroom. Are there any words that you do not understand? Children have a bad habit a bad habit of skipping over words they do not know, especially in math. They used to do it a lot in reading, but reading lends itself to, oh, if I don't know a word, I can just use this, I can use that. But in a math class, there's not any fix up strategies. What do I do in the math class when I don't know a word? And some of the students, they honestly, they see math, reading, science, and social studies as not building on each other or literacy or connected. They see them as separate subjects where you don't take what you know from another subject and apply it in the other subject. Ugh. So, if you want your students to be able to use those strategies, you have to tell them, hey, this is what you do when you don't know a word. And in my classroom, I use context clues because it's part of the literacy. Context clues or words helps you identify unfamiliar words. Now, if the kids can't decode, that is something totally different. Totally different. Um, what information from the problem that tells us that we will use blank to solve this? You use predictions. And how will we solve this problem is a summarization. Now, I teach reciprocal teaching in my classroom. And this is important because it connects the students to this. What do we know? What is the problem giving us? And what do we want to know is what is the problem asking us? But there's this gray area between there that the students don't know how to get from we know this and how do I solve it? And what does that look like? There are several things that you can do. First, in your classroom, you can create a math tools wall. When I say math tools, I'm talking about the tools that you use to solve problems. The way that this is taught, and I teach this in my redraw write with problem solving with redraw write. I teach my students or the people who have purchased the program to create tools. So when you get to that draw part, the draw part is where you take the information. It's that bridge that, oh, I've done all this work, I've synthesized, I've figured out the clarifying information, what was confusing. I figured out unfamiliar words, and I know that I'm supposed to use an operation. There's only 4 operations. And if you are teaching K through 5, it's simple. It's really, really simple. Fourth and fifth grade, and third, fourth, and fifth, you're going to use the 4 operations. And even in third grade, it's really addition, subtraction, multiplication is going to be very, very explicit. 2-step with addition and subtraction, sometimes with multiplication, division, but at the end of the day, it's explicit. But if you teach your students to pull out that information, what do I know? Create that prediction before you go into the draw part. Creating a summary based on what they predicted will be simple because to do the draw part, they must have a math tool. And it's not too early to teach your third graders about an algorithm. An algorithm is what we use every day. Now, the standard algorithm and an algorithm are 2 totally different things. An algorithm can be partial products, partial quotient, partial addings, all those partial things are algorithms. However, they are not the standard algorithm. And you have to be clear on what you want your students to do. In my classes, I have made an explicit distinction between the standard algorithm and partial. I don't even call them an algorithm. I call them partial add-ins, partial products, all of those things. But I do say the standard algorithm because that is the goal. Eventually, we want the students to use the standard algorithm. And I know people say, well, no, they can use, no, they cannot. I taught middle school, I taught high school. Your children, you're setting them up for failure if you don't move them on from that algorithm. And I'm going to get off that soapbox. So, when you're teaching, especially for like the younger kids, start with this problem solving, this T chart. Know, want to know. What do we know? And real simple. And it helps with their paraphrasing as well because they don't have to pull out all the words. You just teach them how to jot down information. So the next thing is making predictions. This is an anchor chart from one of the classes that I taught. And I start out, I'm a sticky note person. So, and I'm not a cutesy person. I do a lot of cute things, but it is effective. But I like sticky notes. You know why? Because if you teach more than one class, it's easy to get it done. You can just take the sticky note off and it's like you've never done it. But writing on it, yeah. And I don't like laminating because it's messy. So I use sticky notes. Now, this is one thing that I use in my classroom. I think the problem is asking me to. And then I found this, I think it was on Teacher Pay Teacher, I don't know. It had word pops, what pops out to you. So when the students make predictions, they have to have evidence from the problem. This is a problem for emerging bilingual and students that struggle. If they say I'm supposed to add, you're supposed to say, well, what words in the problem tell you to add? What if they say I'm supposed to subtract? What words in the problem tell you to subtract? They have to pull it out. And that's a way to get them to justify their thinking. I don't say your work, I say your thinking because that's what it is. It's a product of those thoughts that you had. Now, two-step word problems. I explicitly teach this. I teach my students how to tell the difference between a one-step word problem and a two-step word problem. I do. I ask that question because I need to hear if they know what a one-step problem is. And I make them justify with evidence from the problem. You can do that with first and second graders. Real simple, not hard. Because one thing I do know is that third grade is a hard grade because problem solving is hard with them because they have to do one and two step problems. Then after they do the predicting, I think I'm going to, because that's that gap between the draw part. The draw part is where you're solving it. But this is the gap between the draw part and the read part. I think I'm going to. If your students can't go from the read part to the draw part and say, I know what I'm supposed to do, then that read part, they're not getting it. And let me tell you something. If you are struggling with problem solving, I did better with getting my students that were older to problem solve. These younger children is hard because they struggle with reading and they haven't had a lot of exposure and life experiences. So what I do is discuss with your table or shoulder partner if you're going to multiply or divide. And then they have to justify their thinking. Now, I also use reciprocal teaching in my classroom. I love reciprocal teaching. It has been a lifesaver for me. One of the things that I say in math, and just in Title I schools, because the literacy rates are so low, I tell them all the time that reading is everybody's responsibility. I'm not saying to teach them how to read is everybody's responsibility, but if you are not using reading strategies in your classroom or comprehension strategies in your math, science, or social studies classroom, your kids are going to fail. I'm telling you, because the literacy rates have declined so much that everybody is having to lift the literacy up. It's like lifting it up in prayer and hoping that you put enough in to where they comprehend it. And the literacy part is only the part where you're saying, okay, these students need to be able to comprehend. It's teaching them how to synthesize and work through their thinking. Reading is thinking. So the questioner, the predictor, the clarifier, and the summarizer, they are the four parts of reciprocal teaching. It is the comprehension part for reading, and this can be implemented in the classroom. It's a part of the product that I created and adapted for struggling readers, problem solving with read, draw, write. The questioner asks questions. And we have, if you have to teach your students how to question and think about their thinking. It's that metacognition, something that we don't talk about anymore. So you ask questions. What do I know about this? What do I know? That is the first question you can ask them. Once you have moved the kids on from what I know and uh what I know and what I want to know, you move them on from that. And this is the second part. It's the fabulous four. So the first part is, what do I know? What is the problem asking me to do? Those are questions. You set the kids up and it's a gradual process. Then the predictor. The predictor is the person who predicts what you're going to do based on the information from the text. That is where that predicting with evidence. You teach these in isolation because when you put them in groups to do like problem and task, that's why it falls apart, because the comprehension does not have any support and the children are left on their own, and you're hoping that they solve the problem and have some engagement. It doesn't work by osmosis like that. Then the clarifier. The clarifier is really important, and I think it's downplayed in the reciprocal teaching process because it helps students to think about what they don't understand and make it okay to say, hey, this is confusing. What do you all think? What is this saying? That helps them have those real conversations about what they don't know. And the last part, summarizing in math, is what plan based on what I predicted, what I didn't know, clarified now that I understand, and the questions, what I know and what I want to know. What problem solving plan am I coming up with this? What math tool am I going to use? For elementary, this is important because it's conceptual. You have your strip diagrams, and you have to teach your students to explicitly know the difference between different problems and the math tool that they're going to use. It could be a chart, it could be a graph, it could be um, equal groups. We do that with multiplication, we use that too. It could be an array, we could use that. We could use an algorithm. And everybody's not going to use the same math tool, because I know in third grade, as well as in fifth grade, the tools change because it becomes very abstract as they move towards secondary. For rounding, you're not going to use an algorithm. If you have a student that says, hey, I'm going to use an algorithm for rounding, you know that that student didn't know what they were doing, correct? So that student is somebody that needs to be in your intervention group because they don't have any clue to where the read part and the tool, like they didn't understand anything. So you have to explicitly teach your students how the math tools and how to use them and when to use them. So I hope that your mind wasn't blown. And this is something that you can use in your classroom um, as early as Monday, because problem solving is a year-long process. It's a year-long process and it is difficult sometimes. So I don't know why my video is not coming up, but this is problem solving with redraw right. It is the adapted redraw right for students that need support with literacy. See, it says for students who struggle with reading. This is for those students, your emerging bilingual. It is for your special education students. I don't believe in using keywords. I believe in teaching the kids how to think. Just because a child struggles with reading does not mean that they have poor oral comprehension. A lot of students get text to speech. If your students get text to speech, if they're emerging bilingual, work on their thinking skills and being able to listen to the problem and think through it. That's what you focus on with those students that are struggling. Then I in here, see these T charts? They're in there. There are my anchor charts are in there for you. I update this as I create and add to I find things that work with kids that are struggling. In here I teach you about context clues, drawing conclusions, making inferences in your math classroom. This is one of the instructional coaches who actually used my redraw right strategy, the adaptive version. He said it's an awesome strategy. He actually used it at his school and rolled it out to teach teach the teachers in there. So what's included in the redraw right problem solving strategy? Redraw right explained. I do add some links to see, think, wonder. These are thinking routines that show you how I use them in my classroom. Teaching students to use context clues. And then I give some bonus tips in here. I give you the template, teaching tip Tuesday, some things from my math intervention. Um, there's some other things, redraw right in the classroom. So you get a lot. And the best thing about this is that you always have access to it as long as it's available. So it's not like a TPT product and you buy it and all you get is templates. No, you get videos and everything else that goes with it. So if you are interested in this, let me drop this in the comment section. You can check that out on my website and leave comments if you liked it. I know a lot of people who have purchased it. I rarely hear from them, so I'm assuming that they are satisfied with it. But that is what's available to you. It's a two, and all of the strategies that I have used in there, they have been used in my classroom, and it is based on my 25 years of teaching. If you're new and you just jumped on this live stream, I've taught elementary grades 1 through 5. I've taught 6th and 8th grade, 7th grade and summer school math, and then I've taught Algebra 1. So my lens is vertically to see what works for kids, and my students have done well with it. And I've had special education students pass those tests, grow on NWEA, and really understand what problem solving is. So I hope that you have found this to be amazing. And thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to check out my blog post and those things that I have available on my blog for you. If you have questions, comments, put them in the comment section, and I'll see you all in my next live stream. Bye bye.